On to our next story for this top five. Turkey has sent over 47 tons of weaponry to insurgents in Syria since June. Based on UN records, Turkey has sent varying amounts of guns to militant groups in Syria, with the highest reaching nearly 29 tons in September. The Turkish Foreign Ministry's spokesman initially denied the statistics, but later confirmed that the UN numbers were based on previous records from the Turkish Statistics Institute. Back in November, authorities seized nearly 1,000 rocket heads after searching a truck in the southern city of Adana. At the time, the city's governor claimed that the operation proved Turkey was not supporting radical groups in Syria. To discuss that further, we're now joined by Muhammad Ali, Press TV's correspondent, who's joining us live now from the Syrian capital, Damascus. Now, Muhammad, tell us about, how this will affect, do you think, Turkey's image within Syria?
Well, first of all, we have to note that this is no surprise, not for the Syrians nor for the Syrian government, such a support for the foreign-backed militants on Syria's soil. This is not the first time we hear about Turkey's support. However, today, hearing the amount, a specific amount, 47 tons of weapons, definitely shows how involved Turkey is in increasing the violence inside Syria by supporting such armed groups. At the end of the day, we know that most of such weapons are at the end falling in the hands of the Takfiri insurgents, extremist Islamist groups, such as the Islamic Front. As you know, just several days ago, the so-called Islamic Front extremists actually raided the so-called bases of the Supreme Military Council of the FSA and took over the weapons that they were storing, that they got from the United States and perhaps also from Turkey. Such weapons, at the end, those weapons are falling in the hands of extremists, Qaeda affiliates, and this is very dangerous. This does not mean that if those weapons were with the hands of the FSA, it's okay, because at the end, we remember how many crimes and human rights violations also were committed by the so-called Free Syrian Army. This was mentioned by several human rights organizations, including the Human Rights Watch in 2012, human rights violations such as torture, slaughtering, and kidnapping, and others. And of course, we have now the Qaeda affiliates. Such, of course, support for the armed men, whether with the weapons or the money or logistic support, on-ground training, facilitating the infiltration, all of that, of course, contributes to increasing the violence on Syria's soil, increasing the ability of those armed men in taking over residential neighborhoods, raiding them, displacing Syrians, and causing more suffering for the Syrian people, and most importantly, is blocking any peaceful solution for the Syrian unrest, including the one of Geneva II conference. The Syrians are expecting to perhaps maybe contribute to finding a political solution and ending violence. This is the priority. We know that the Syrian government is going to this Geneva conference. We know that representatives of who perhaps might have any influence on the FSA will be going. But the main problem now is that those armed men that are affiliated to Al-Qaeda are more powerful than the so-called FSA.
Right, so what is the Syrian government saying to these reports of these Turkish weapons? I mean, I imagine this confirms what the Syrian government has been saying from day one.
Exactly. The Syrian government did not comment on this particular news item regarding 47 tons of weapons sent from Turkey to the armed men. However, the Syrian government during the unrest has sent several letters, the foreign ministry particularly, to the United Nations, speaking about such support coming from Turkey in particular for those armed men, and calling on the United Nations to exert some efforts and take measures that would perhaps stop such support for the armed men. Of course, the latest letter from the foreign ministry, Syrian foreign ministry, was to the United Nations, speaking not only about Turkey, but also about the Saudi role, who is now in charge, Saudi Arabia, the government, for funding and supporting in general the armed men and the Islamist groups after Qatar was perhaps taking over this file. Now Saudi Arabia is, and the Syrian government sent letters to the United Nations regarding also stopping such support by Saudi Arabia, because all of such weapons and money going to the insurgents, of course, definitely will stop or block any peaceful solution for the Syrian unrest. The Syrian government knows that, and it has been sending letters to the United Nations in an effort, perhaps, to internationally stop such support.
Okay, Mohammed, thanks a lot for that.